Last year I reviewed a version of this watch and I said that it's one of the most interesting diver watches that you can buy under $1,000. And this year's version, I think, is even better. My name is Oleg, that right there is Mr. Bond, and in today's video we will do a full review of this Venezianico Nereide with a gold dial. I'll point out all the positives and the negatives as I find them, but now let's talk about the case and the dimensions. One of the big changes between this year's version and last year's version are the case dimensions. This time it's a 39mm diameter, 45.5mm like-to-like distance, and this watch is only 10.5mm in case height with a 20mm lug opening. Just to remind you, last year's version was around 42mm in diameter and around 49mm from one lug to another, which were quite large on a lot of people's wrists. And in a review for that watch, I mentioned that I wish that the watch came in a smaller case. Well, now it does. A lot of other elements about the watch stayed the same, the elements that I personally liked, like for example this tungsten bezel insert. It is mirror finished, however tungsten is a very tough material. I think it's one grade below diamond in terms of its hardness, which means that this bezel will stay mirror finished for a long time. It is very difficult to scratch, just like sapphire is, and of course this watch comes with a sapphire crystal. It comes with 200 meters of water resistance, partially due to that crown at the 3 o'clock position. It's a screw down crown housed within these crown guards, and of course the crown is signed with the Venezianico logo. Also, you have a case back. The case back is sort of unique. Just like last year's version, this one is held together by these 6 screws instead of it being a screw down case back like you will find in majority of diver watches. However, I am assured from Venezianico that the water resistance was not compromised. This one still comes with 200 meters of it, as I mentioned. The case is made out of 316L stainless steel and it features pretty much all satin finishes except for these high polished chamfered highlights on the case, as well as the high polish surround on the bezel. The coin edge grip on the bezel is fairly deep. Sometimes bezels on the thinner profile diver watches are difficult to grip, but I'm happy to say this one doesn't suffer from the same problem. It's a 120 click unidirectional bezel action. The bezel action is confident and solid. Overall, I think Venezianico did a pretty good job with this case. They kept all the elements from the previous version that I liked, and they changed the elements that I didn't like, mainly the sizing of the watch. Moving on to the dial of this timepiece, I think that's the standout feature other than the tungsten bezel insert. There are a couple of different changes to this dial that I think are a welcomed addition. Number one, the elimination of the date window at the 3 o'clock position, and in my opinion that looks better. It is more balanced. The other element of the dial that got eliminated is the chapter ring around the dial. It kind of created this sort of stepped effect. This time we just have the hashes printed for seconds or minutes increments, and that's it. And in my opinion that makes the dial look a lot cleaner and overall just better balanced. The other elements of the dial stayed pretty much the same. You have applied indexes, you have the high polish finish on the indexes and on the set of hands, minimal writing, applied Venezianico logo closer to the 12 o'clock position, and then the model name closer to the 6 o'clock position, as well as gold written in Italian, because of course this dial is very unique since it is plated in the 24 karat gold. I also like the fact that the dial is not just flat, it has this sort of rippled paper-like texture, which makes it a lot more interesting visually speaking. It also plays with the light in a very interesting manner. As far as the bracelet and the strap options, this one comes on a stainless steel bracelet. The 5-link design, very similar to a Jubilee bracelet, however all the links are angled. It's a very similar bracelet to the one from last year, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I didn't have too many problems with it, other than the fact that they use push style pins for resizing. I personally always prefer screw in place pins. First of all, it's much easier to resize and it's more user friendly. Secondly, it kind of makes the watch feel a little bit more high-end. Other than that, I think everything else about the bracelet is pretty good. The finishes are great. It's a two-tone finish with the satin finish on the outer links and the high polish finish on the inner link. You also have this high polish finish on the center of the clasp. That is a bit of a negative because over time you of course will pick up quite a few scratches and scuffs. There is an applied Venezianico logo there as well. You also have these 2 pushers to open the engineered deployment clasp. And on the clasp, you also have 3 micro adjustments, so it's fairly easy to get the right sizing. Another suggestion that I would have for Venezianico, other than including the screw in place style pins, I would also include a quick release system for the bracelet. These systems are great, and from my experience talking to a lot of watch enthusiasts, reading your comments, most people prefer that system because it makes it so much easier to swap the stainless steel bracelet for a different strap option. The fit on the wrist is pretty great. It has a very similar sort of feel to a Tudor Black Bay 58 because both watches share the same diameter. They also share a very slim profile. In fact, this Venezianico is actually slimmer than the Tudor Black Bay 58. And the reason why I point out the Black Bay, because I think most people are familiar with the way that watch looks on the wrist, and this kind of gives you an idea of how this watch would feel. Although I will say that this watch has more heft than the Tudor does, you do feel like you're wearing a watch, and not in a bad way. It just kind of feels substantial and of a good quality. The balance between the watch head and the bracelet is good. The bracelet is pretty hefty, so there are no awkward angles. The watch is also not too top heavy. Overall, I'm very happy with the fit of this one. I was actually pretty happy with the fit of the other version, the 42mm version. Although it was a little bit on the heavier side, I think the weight balance on this one is better. As far as the movement on this model, it did change from last year's version. Last year's version featured a Celita movement SW200. This version features a 9 series Miyota movement, 9039 to be exact. It is still a high beat movement beating at 4 Hz, and it comes with 42 hours of power reserve. These movements tend to have a bit of a rotor noise. Happy to say this version kind of damps that noise quite a bit, so you can't really hear it and feel it all that much. It's definitely still there, but it is better than the rotor noise in a lot of other models that I have tested over the years. In general, my opinion of this watch is quite positive. I like a lot of aspects of it. I think it's very unique in today's world of micro-brand watches and the saturation of diver watches on the market. It's kind of difficult to stand out. I think Venezianico did a really good job with this model in terms of making it stand out and making it different. Having that wrinkled paper texture to the dial, having it be coated in a 24 karat gold, having this tungsten mirror finished bezel, having excellent case dimensions, and all of that I think is for somewhat of a reasonable price, 740 euro. It's not exactly a cheap watch, but I think it's a pretty good package. And if you are okay with the negatives that I mentioned, I think you will enjoy this watch quite a bit. Now, between last year's version and this year's version, because both versions are still available on the website, I'd personally go for this year's version, for the smaller version. I think it just has a lot of improvements that I personally like. However, if you like the larger case, if you like the date window complication, if you want the Swiss made movement, well, that version is also still available. I appreciate you watching this video all the way until the end. If you enjoyed the review, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more videos like this in the future, and leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about this dial, what do you think about this watch. I always enjoy reading your comments. Thanks for watching this one, and we'll see you next time. Bye.